1929. If ever there were a man who embodied the triad of faith, hope, and love, I would say that it was Martin Luther King. His life was shaped by his faith, his deep religious faith. It was shaped by hope, hope for a better world, and it was shaped by love, an enormous love that was influenced by Gandhi for nonviolence, for being together and walking the path of peace. Last week I was talking about faith and thinking about other words for that. It's often described as trust, as unflinching trust in another person or in something else. Sometimes something seen, sometimes something unseen. We all know the expression keeping the faith, which means that you are remaining true to something that is of significance to you. We all know what it means to be faithful and to forget to be faithful. We know what losing faith means. When we've given up, we have given up in a way, trusting in something. There was once a rock group called Blind Faith, which I thought was an interesting name for a band. I was listening to some of their music at 2 o'clock this morning when I had nothing else to do. Actually, I was thinking about deep thoughts. And I thought, yeah, is there such a thing as blind faith? If you consider that believing is seeing, you can have blind faith. And the other expression goes as well, seeing is believing. It depends on your perspective. I'm sure that most of you know that the Marines always say, Semper Fi. Yes, always faithful, always loyal, always trustworthy. It's a very important expression. The Marines are one of the most, closely bonded group of military people in the United States. They are true believers in their connection with one another. And you see their bumper stickers on the backs of trucks and cars all around New Jersey. Semper Fi. Now, where does hope come into this? Well, faith in Paul's ideas, when he was writing to the Corinthians and other early churches around the Mediterranean, had to do with action. It had to do about being active in your faith. Imagine living in a world surrounded by the Roman Empire in which you are a tiny, tiny piece of the pie. Early Christians were very few relative to the number of other people who were worshiping Mithra, the mystery cult that had taken over during Nero's reign. The Christians, well, let's put it this way, the Romans could tolerate Judaism, but they had a very difficult time tolerating Jews who'd gone to the other side, who had left traditional Judaism and Torah to go with a movement that was called the Way and become followers of a Jew named Jesus Christ. People were executed and martyred for talking about him because his presence and their ideas about him threatened the Roman Empire's sense of order, law and order. Jesus himself was a teacher, a healer, a prophet, a rabbi, someone who was willing to risk everything, to risk his life, to risk his allegiance to his Jewish faith and his background. People so often forget that Jesus was a Jew, that everyone he knew personally was a Jew, that his ideas were a way to refresh Judaism, to change it into something, to bring more love into it and less fanaticism about the tiny little details that the Sadducees and the Pharisees were very attached to. If you've seen the story The Chosen on television, which I started watching because Elaine and I were talking about it a couple of years ago. Yes. You see how this plays out. You see how Jesus is different from other people. Not because he's God, but because he's different, because he treats outcasts differently. He treats the authorities around him differently. He's a person who trusts himself and his instincts. Biblical scholars describe him as the new Adam. Adam being the first man created by God who sinned because he learned about good and evil and had knowledge. And Jesus who came along to correct all of that. Now the idea of hope is that belief in Jesus gives people hope. It gives them the hope that they will be saved by God, that they can get past all their sinning. Sin was the big problem in Paul's time. He was more concerned about people sinning than anything else, and a lot of his writing is about that. So he wants the believers in all the tiny little house churches that he travels to see to hope, to accept faith in Jesus so that they can hopefully be saved when the time comes for their passing away, for their leaving life behind. Hope is something that keeps them going. Now, I would say today, Martin Luther King Sunday, that hope was something that Martin Luther King was, what should we say, profoundly passionate about sharing with people. And in his case, the hoping. Hoping means wanting to believe. You may not believe, but you want to believe. You're wishing for it. You're uncertain about the actual thing, but you want to believe and you want to change. You're praying for God and goodness and a good outcome. It also involves dreaming. Isn't hope about dreaming? I hope that you're all right. I'm wishing that you're all right. I wish for you all good things. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. I'm hoping for a white Christmas. I'm dreaming. I was watching Bobby Darin singing Dream Lover, and I'm thinking, yes, people dream about lovers all the time. They're hoping they're going to meet the person who fulfills their greatest expectations. Yeah. Dreaming comes up so much. And in Martin Luther King's most famous speech, the I Have a Dream speech, he outlines every single thing he wants to see changed. He's hoping that this country will live up to its ideals, that the prejudices in this country will disappear, that people will come to their senses and learn to love one another. These are high hopes. And of course, they weren't all accomplished when he himself was murdered, were they? But people are still dreaming his dreams. They are still saying his words, still considering who he was to them. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. Think about what Barack Obama represented to Martin Luther King. You know? He was related to an African father who had not been enslaved, but he was related to white people in Kansas who had been related to slave owners. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. The most famous line, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I think about those words all the time. I have nieces and nephews who have black parents and white parents. My daughter is white. Her boyfriend is black. I think about this all the time, what goes on with us as we look at people and judge them by their colors. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the south with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of this nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. What more can you say? I used to hear people say all the time, where there's life, there is hope. Until one day I heard a minister on a tape my stepmother sent to me saying, where there is hope, there is life. Not where there is life, there's hope, but where there is hope, there is life. When you are hopeless, your life becomes completely flat, doesn't it? That's when you go to the dark place, the sad place, the isolated place. I'm sure some of you have suffered from depression. I certainly have. Everybody in my family suffers from it. But where there is hope, you can come up out of the darkness and the depression. Martin Luther King was an expert at lifting people up, at naming the things that needed to be named, and then working to bring peace and justice into the world. Next time I see you, I will be speaking about love and how love plays into all of this. Can there be justice if there is no love? I want you to think about that in the weeks ahead.